actually been there and done it in Africa, because to do things in Africa, you need to be in Africa and understand how Africa works. It's a great pleasure to introduce you today, Yaw, and to give us your perspective on how things are going. Maybe just to start it off, we've got a lot of young entrepreneurs on the line today, but tell us a bit about your journey and, you know, what was the path you took to get to where you are now?
Sure, thank you. Thanks so much for the kind introduction. So I was actually born in Ghana. You know, I'm from Sub-Saharan Africa. You know, I grew up there, and I've always been like interested in tech, you know, and entrepreneurship. So, you know, as early as I could remember, you know, as I like the time when I was like 10, my brother and I were like writing code for games and stuff. It probably doesn't sound cool now, you know, but back then very few people had computers, you know, and so that was the context, you know, in which, you know, I started my journey. You know, at a very young age, I went to med school and I graduated pretty early. You know, I think I was like 22 at the time, and I was thinking of ways to combine like my, you know, love for tech as an enthusiast and then also my medical knowledge. And so I would say like two major things happened. One was I actually visited South Africa. You know, I came to University of Cape Town, and my dream at the time was to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, I would say. And I was in Groote Hospital, which is like very, very top, you know, but what actually happened was that I realized that the surgeries was so long. You know, I remember because I was there with my triplet sister, and one surgery took like 7 hours. I had a key in my pocket, you know, and I knew, you know, I began to question, like, is this the path I want to take, you know? And the professor over there at the time, his name was Prof. Zilla, I believe. He took me to this department where they had like the bioengineers, and they were making like heart valves and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And so that kind of began to shape my perspective. You know, so eventually when I returned to Ghana, I also quickly realized that the tools we had as doctors, as clinicians, you know, most of them were made in the West, you know, like it didn't really fit the local context. It was inadequate. And so I decided to dip my feet into research. And so I eventually left Ghana to the US, you know, and over there, I got introduced into research. And so that was like the journey. Eventually I met my co-founders. I was at University of New Haven. They were at Yale. And then, you know, we kind of discussed ways to solve some of these problems in Africa, and then came up with the idea for the startup.
So what you're describing, it was a journey. It wasn't something that just kind of happened. It was something that came up over time.
Yes.
And for you to find that kind of niche.
Yes.
That's I think it's a really good message. First up for the students is that it's not something that you just wake up one day and that's how it happens. It's through your experiences that it is shaped. So in terms of what you are doing now, and leap forward to where you're currently doing the diagnostics, can you just tell us about how you managed to set up the company, and you know a little bit about the actual technology? You know, is it lateral flow? Is it molecular? And to take it from there, just to give us a flavor of what it is now, and then we can drill into differences between what you've experienced in Africa and in the US.
Yeah, so the technology basically started with a problem. Like you always have to start with a problem, you know. And so we realized that, you know, every single year, I don't know for South Africa, but like in most other sub-Saharan African countries, you know, we have about 30 million people carrying sickle cell disease. I myself, I carry the gene. And every single year, you have like 250,000 children dying, most of them before the age of 5. And so, you know, this idea was to come up with tools that will help with point of care diagnostics, but also monitoring, and then, you know, serve as a platform that will help in diagnosing other red blood cell diseases. And so the basic concept is that we have this optical system, which uses, you know, face imaging, like it's a microscope that basically captures a 3D view of the cells. And then you are generating this from millions of cells. And then we use machine learning to kind of build analytic and predictive models to be able to, you know, make a diagnosis. That is like the short version of it.
So I mean, that's a great example. So you are taking a microscope a blood sample, getting a lot of different analyses and pictures of different cells and sickle cells, and then using artificial intelligence to do an automated readout as a diagnostic.
Yes, basically. Yes.
That's very cool. That's
Thank
very
you.
cool. And how scalable is that, if I may? Where are you at in the technology that you are developing? Do you have is it generation 1? Are you selling tens of thousands of products? How are you doing it currently?
So we are still early stage, but we've collected tons of data. We have like clinical partnerships and stuff, and we are looking to like expand it. But it's very scalable in the sense that it's a platform. It's a 3D phase imaging microscope that can be used in a low resource setting. And so any disease that affects like the morphology of the cell, like malaria, where you have the red cell, you can easily automate that. Things like Babesia here in the US, it can be very useful for automated cytology.
So thank you, Yaw. So if you would be, you're obviously based in Berkeley now.
Yes.
Doing this, could you have done this if you were in Africa?
Yes, but it would have been harder. And that's like just the honest truth. Like I'm very strong Pan-Africanist, but the reality on the ground is that we have a lot of work to do on the continent to make science startups thrive.
So maybe we can drill down into that a little bit more, because differentiating between your experiences in Africa and your experiences in the US, and I can also give a couple of examples with kind of my background. But what have you seen as kind of the biggest differences, and maybe in a positive and a negative way? What are the biggest barriers, but also what are some of the biggest opportunities?
Yeah, I would say the main difference is the ecosystem. So like when I talk about the ecosystem, I mean like government, academia, talent, nonprofits, like all coming together to create this meshwork of innovation. And I bet South Africa probably has in my opinion, the best innovation ecosystem in Africa. But like in a lot of the African countries, especially Sub-Saharan Africa, the innovation ecosystem is almost like weak or non-existent. Like, for example, with us, when we started, it was just an idea, like I'm an immigrant, and just with an idea, I received like an email in my inbox, and we received like a $30,000 grant. That was like the first money we received to begin the research, and like, I didn't know anyone, I didn't pay any bribe, like it was like, I just applied and I got it, and like, I was actually happy when I saw like Stellenbosch, you guys like trying to give prizes, because that's a very easy source of funding for us. Like we did pitch competitions at Yale and stuff. Like with me at Berkeley, we also did stuff over there, but like literally once you have a solid team and a good idea, like the opportunities chase you. And I guess that was one of the major challenges in Sub-Saharan Africa. The funding sources, are sometimes a little bit weak, but also in terms of like the ecosystem, like if you look at academia, for example, South Africa probably actually does a lot of research, but like in Ghana has like one of the best educational systems in West Africa, and yet it is focused almost so much on teaching, and like it's very little research, and you actually can't blame the academia because they actually are not getting funded. Most of the funding is coming from like outside agencies. And so when you're not doing research and all you're doing is teaching, it affects the ranking of the university. For example, like you look at top universities in the world, and like 600 are like from most of it is America and UK. Maybe you see like UCT or some of the South African universities, and it's like 600 or something. And it's not like our universities are not good. It's just that the research is not like a priority for our government. And so what eventually ends up happening is that, because when you do research, you also file patents. And some of those patents actually end up generating revenue for the university to create a cycle. So for some context, like UC Berkeley, my school, as at last year, they made like $200 million from licensing. That is the amount of money that Ghana went to from the IMF to be able to bail out the whole country.
So I mean, yeah, that's a really good example, and maybe just to take a note for the the different entrepreneurs on the call. Funding is always a problem, no matter where you are. But I think in Africa, it's a bigger problem. And maybe the group at SAMRC should be a little bit understanding that they're actually in a very fortunate position is one, but there is funding around. I actually went to the University of Accra about 2.5 years ago, and I couldn't believe it was actually bigger than UCT. It's a huge university. And then you're quite right in terms of the way that some of the universities are run. And just you mentioned the world rankings for the entrepreneurs on the call. Is the world ranking is really based on your publication and your patent output. And then there's a third ranking is about income generated. And Africa is miles behind the rest. They hardly generate any income from the universities in terms of royalties and milestones. So I think that's a very important lesson. Clearly you're thinking in the US it's been easier than in Africa. If you were wearing your hat looking forward, and your terms of long-term plans, manufacturing, access, getting things into the market in Africa, what are your current thoughts about how you're looking to do that without giving anything confidential away? Are you looking to manufacture in Africa? Are you going to register? Are you going to get a WHO approved? What is your kind of route to market you're thinking of?
Yeah, definitely. Manufacturing in Africa would definitely be a huge boost, especially with the creation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are hoping that trade between the African countries, can be boosted. But more importantly, even outside manufacturing, I think, it would be good in the long term if innovation can also actually happen on the continent. So then we can create local talent that can go on to spur up further innovation. And so, yeah, we are definitely hoping to manufacture, on the continent, if possible, at least for the African market, and then also build an ecosystem.
And can I build on that a bit more in terms of manufacturing and access? One of the questions that gets asked a lot is about the role of the WHO in product approvals. To be this, for example, to use this as a diagnostic, in Ghana is one thing, to get it into Nigeria, Liberia, other countries with a high burden of sickle cell. Do you plan to go that route as well with WHO pre-qual in terms of market and internationalization, or you're going to start in Ghana and see how it goes, and then start in one country and see how it goes, and then scale kind of organically?
Yeah, we definitely plan to scale, but it is good to start. We want to actually start in Ghana because I have connections and friends over there. And so the initial plan is to start over there, get the approval. It also gives us more proof points to be able to raise more funding. And then once we have that, yeah, we definitely want to register with the WHO. We want to scale. We want to also even launch tools that will be useful in the US, like complete blood count. And so, yeah, that's how we are thinking of it.
Okay, so my next question is, so what's your top piece of advice for young entrepreneurs from Africa, going from Africa to the US? What's your top few bits of advice you would give them?
I would wish young entrepreneurs don't have to leave the continent, honestly. But until we have a solid ecosystem, it will be nice to, I guess one thing I learned over here also is that having a diverse team helps. It's not all roses. This place also has its challenges, and so sometimes, for example, most of the big name investors pattern match, and it's quite unfortunate. And so having a diverse set of founders who can have your back, it's important.
And so how big is the company at the moment? What kind of labs do you have? Just a bit more about the company.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently still a young startup, honestly. We are looking to scale in the future, but currently we are very, young startup with very strong partnerships. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to open the floor a little bit to give everyone else opportunities to ask some questions. If anyone has any questions, please just either raise your hand and we can ask. Before, I don't want to hog all the questions until we are at the moment. Leana, I can't see hands with the kind of the view that I have. Are there any questions at this stage?
I do not see any hands raised right now, Richard, nor do I see any in the chat yet. We can perhaps give it a second for any to come up. No, I think we are good for right now.
Then I'm going to hog the floor if you don't mind.
Please go for it. I've got some for later, but just not at this stage. Oh, sorry, Osai is asking. Hi, Osai. Yaw, I think you also know Osai.
Yeah.
Osai is just asking you to tell us a bit more about your team, please.
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders and I'm the CEO. Then I have Tim. So Tim is currently doing his PhD at Yale. Prior to that, he did computer science at Seattle, University of Washington. And then Song, our COO, has a JD. And prior to that, she also has an MBA from Yale. But like it's basically our skills complement because Tim's PhD is in machine learning, which is directly related to what we are doing. And then my background is a PhD in bioengineering, medical degree, relates to the medical and biology field. And then Song's field basically complements the management and running the company. So our skill sets also complement each other. I mean, racially, we are also diverse because like Tim is Caucasian, I'm Black, Song is Asian. It gives us access to different sources of funding, especially in the US. Like there are some sources of funding that's gonna go like, Black entrepreneurs, then, we have access to it, we also have access to funding that supports like minorities and women. And so it gives us access to different opportunities. So that was actually what I meant by having a diverse team. It actually helped. Yeah.
So just a slight digression, are you familiar? So obviously the Gates Foundation and the National Institute of Health, they've had some sizable calls open in the last year around sickle cell disease. I'm just kind of flagging if you weren't aware of that, because I think there's another big funding opportunity for you there.
Yeah, we keep getting that. Yeah, we keep getting that. It's something we are looking into.
Okay, so in terms of intellectual property, without obviously giving any sensitive company information away, how have you decided to protect your innovation? Is it all in coding that you can't really protect, or is it, how are you looking to do it?
Yeah, so what actually happened was that, we decided, the core imaging system we could have built from scratch, but we decided that because we are like young folks, it was better to partner. And so what we did was that we found Duke University, which is like one of the top universities in the South. And then we got them to give us a patent option, which would we basically negotiated a license to use that imaging system. And then what we did was that now we came up with our own invention to improve that system. And then we filed a patent in the US. And so normally how it goes is that in the US, you can file a provisional patent, which gives you like 1 year. And then after that, you file the non-provisional with a PCT. So what a PCT does is that you're basically staking a claim also in, other countries, and so later on down the line, we can file patents in like, all the other African countries, other countries worldwide. And that gives us, a foothold. We also have a lot of IP in terms of like the data we are collecting, which is like a trade secret. And so, that gives us like a head start over competitors.
That's great, thanks. And I think that resonates with several people on the call who are looking to generate databases and filing patents, et cetera, et cetera. Are there any special, did you have any special legal hurdles to have to go through with patient data and ethics approvals and all of those things with storage and usage of data, et cetera?
Yeah, it takes like a long time to be able to get like those approvals. But what I'll say is that is actually one advantage Sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in West Africa. It's actually easier to have access to data. And so, that is one advantage in Africa, which, because I am from Ghana, I have access to those two like opportunities. And so we actually have partnership with universities in Ghana. You have access to data it's cheaper and it's faster. They are eager to collaborate, and so, that is one advantage, in Africa.
Yeah, I think that's also changing quite quickly as well, because I think the ethics are getting a lot more tight. Okay, so So how big is this product going to be? Is it going to this microscope? Do you have a vision? Is it going to like be a printer size? Is it going to be a laptop size? Is it going to be very curious? 3G connected, not 3G connected, without giving away any confidential information.
Yeah, we are hoping is basically the size we have now is like almost like a small toaster on the tabletop, and it should have connection to the internet, but it should also be, I mean, like there are a lot of places in the rural areas where there's no access to internet. And so we'll have the models installed on the platform such that even if you don't have internet access, you should be able to use it. It can be battery charged and last for like up to a week, with like solar power. And so that makes it more accessible. And actually we are considering giving away the device itself for free. So they only have to pay for the cartridges in order to make it more accessible to help. Because even though we are a venture, we are also like focused on making like a positive impact in the world.
So yeah, I'm going to go back a little bit, and then I'm warning everyone else on the call that the questions. It's your turn to be asking questions soon. There are a couple of very important things that you've drawn out in what you've said so far that I've seen in the last few months in the LaunchLab and the young entrepreneurs. The first one is that it's a journey, and what you started out as one idea, change. It evolves over time. That's the first one. The second one that struck out at me was the idea of partnerships. You were a lot of young guys there, and suddenly you needed help. So you went to Yale and you signed a deal rather than trying to do everything yourself. With the three of you, you partnered up and you leveraged expertise that other groups had, and then having multiple sources of funding and not relying too much, having all your eggs in one basket, which I think is a very important lesson for any entrepreneurs going forward. And I think I'm really drawing on that because it is quite a few things I've seen in the last couple of months where everyone's putting their eggs in one funder and trying to do everything, but pick the part that that you're good at and focus on that and leverage other people's strengths and make 2 + 2 = 8 as opposed to 4. Jolene has asked the question is, do you think it's important for entrepreneurs with science or engineering backgrounds to invest in business skills development? Or do you think having business mentors is enough? I like the question.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Sometimes I find it hard. I guess you could learn business like development skills, but sometimes a lot of this experience also comes practically, like on the job, you learn it, on the go. Having mentors, definitely helps. Like in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. But I also think sometimes just having a solid team, where, you're the science person and you also have someone with a business background, with like years of experience to help. Sometimes it actually also helps, but yeah, if you want to do like everything on your own, yeah, then definitely the business skills are very important, even though for most science entrepreneurs, it's an afterthought, but it is very important.
Yeah, and business development is not the same as an MBA, guys. I'm just, an MBA is can do strategy. Business development is actually something quite different. It's about finding and closing deals and selling things as opposed to doing the books. So any other questions from other guys before I have any others for Yaw? Either put your hand up or question. Okay, none of the questions at the moment. So route to market, how long are you far away from having working, well, you obviously have prototypes, but working that you'd be comfortable taking this to market and launching?
Yeah, I mean, currently we have prototypes, we have data, but in terms of actually launching, we are looking to like actually, I mean like regulatory approval and all those things. We are looking to launch in like Ghana in about 2 years. And then after that, we are gonna, as I said, expand and scale, There's actually something which just randomly came to my mind since we don't have questions. The issue about like inspiration for entrepreneurs. I think inspiration is very important. and I wanted to touch about it a little bit, if you don't mind. So I realized that like for most of the, what I realized here is that most of the countries that have like actually innovated, most of them have like people that the young people can look up to. Like in the US, you can mention so many names. If you go to UK, they can think of Newton, Alan Turing, and all these guys. And I think that is one of the problems, we have, which we have to kind of solve on the continent, because, at least in Ghana, most young people look up to, religious leaders, politicians, musicians, footballers, and you can't really off the top of your head mention scientists that you'd want to be like when you grow up, and it also ties into like you look at the Nobel Prize in like physiology and medicine, and like you really can't find, you look at Nobel Peace Prize and you find Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu and stuff. But like when it comes to like science, innovation, and research, it's very, very hard, and I think it would be great if we had like our governments, creating, if we can have like local prizes where some of our scientists can be acknowledged and celebrated. It would inspire, the young people to want to take the path of science, and it would make a huge change on the continent.
You raise a very good point, Yaw, and I've heard many people actually mention that in Africa. A lot of people from the sciences who do them in sub-Saharan Africa tend to go poached either by other industries, banks, IP companies, because they're independent thinkers, and I think keeping people in science is one. It's also not the best remunerated profession as a young 24, 25-year-old when you graduate looking to go and earn a living, particularly to support families. I think you raise an excellent point about the need to have mentors in Africa. Leana, sorry, you're going to say something?
I want to tie into this as well. One of my friends is a lecturer at University of the Western Cape, and she teaches essentially science, literacy, and communication to science students. And she puts a lot of exactly this type of inspiration in her work. And I always find it so amazing to see the feedback from the students about exactly that. As you say, most of us probably couldn't off the top of our head name massive scientific innovators from Africa. And that's definitely not because they are not there. We're just not aware of them. And unfortunately, when most of us are asked to picture a scientist, in our mind, we picture an old white guy in a lab coat. So it is so wonderful to hear stories like yours, for example. You are a scientist, you are from Africa, and you are busy achieving something. So that is absolutely wonderful. So we are definitely all appreciative of that. And then I want to tie into inspiration in a way. This is my question that I wanted to ask, so I'm just using the segue. Inspiration in that sense, but then also at LaunchLab, we teach our, as some of our cohort members here can tell you, we teach design thinking, as a approach to entrepreneurship. So that is, of course, all about solving a problem. Mm-hmm. And I, surprisingly, like that approach. And obviously that is one that you followed as well. There's a problem and there's cool possible solutions out there to it. Our previous science-related webinar guest was Shivan Chetty. He is from Wits University's, almost like their tech transfer as well. But they take an interesting approach to it. They don't only use their own research that they produce to try and commercialize that. They actually approach their scientists and say, listen, we know there is this need in industry. Will you go make up a solution for it? So that top-down approach as opposed to the bottom-up. What do you think of that type of approach to it? Have you had any experience with it yourself? Do you reckon that that is also a potential good path to success for aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it depends on I think context always matters. There's no one size fits all. And definitely having, whether bottom up or top down, depending on, obviously we started with a problem, but, there are other people where this approach might work. And so, yeah, I think it's a viable alternative. Yeah.
So building on that.
Sorry, should go
Sorry,
ahead.
Dan, building on that point, I was just been Googling quickly because when I went to University of Accra, University of Ghana, I was taken into the state-of-the-art facilities of Gordon Owendare. You know, the guy's a giant in Western African research. I'd never heard of it. You go into this 5-story state-of-the-art facility funded, I think, as you're saying, you're funded by, I think it was the UK government, UK aid or something, but top state-of-the-art facility, but no one, there's no big song and dance that's been made about it outside, maybe out of Ghana. So I think those are the kinds of things we're talking about. Jean-Claude has asked a question is, do you think your ability to travel internationally had a significant contribution to the inception and development of your idea? And then the follow-on question, if so, how important do you think that this experience is for aspiring entrepreneurs, i.e., do you think they should be better traveled and see the world from different views? Interesting question. Certainly in your case it's true, but what is your view?
Yeah, obviously my ability to travel had a huge impact in terms of like access to connections, capital, network of mentors, but I mean, there is no one size fits all for everyone. I think if you are, especially like for a country like South Africa, you can have access to, it's like you are the rainbow nation. You can have access to multiple, ideas and thoughts in your local area. Obviously, if you have the ability to travel internationally and form connections, it helps. But I mean, if you can't do that, you can do that locally, connect with as many people as possible. I definitely think it's an important experience to have because it gives you like a holistic perspective, but like it's not like a checkbox, for everyone. Like if you can, you basically make the best use of the resources you have available to you.
Yeah, and maybe if I may, I want to add a little bit of overlay of my experience. So I did my PhD at the University of Cape Town, and then I went to Cambridge, and I saw state-of-the-art technologies being developed, but none of them were going to be ever scalable in Africa. And maybe listening to what Joe is saying is, it makes you think about, well, if I was to take this to Africa, what would it look like? And how can we extrapolate it and customize it for Africa? And it's just bringing a second dimension to something that looks very one-dimensional, and maybe even a third dimension, if over the experience of time. So I always, building on that point, you can, the more you learn, the better your product or your innovation will be. And to learn, you're going to need to see things from different angles, whether it's in your country from a different angle or internationally. And I think seeing what I've seen, understanding what's in the making, what's in the field already, and not reinventing the wheel, is I think is critical. Sorry, Leana, I cut you off early on. But Chandra has asked a question. We know that overnight success is a myth. How long did the journey take for you to go and from this idea, and where are you currently? Did you experience any significant deviations along the way? That's a great question.
That's a very interesting question. Yeah, it takes time. Like it's not even like we've currently arrived. I'm still on a journey. It's a lifelong journey. Like with us, for example, I think the team is very, very critical, because actually you may find it surprising, but actually when we started, we were not into the medtech space. Actually, we started as like just a bunch of young people trying to solve a problem, and we explored with different ideas. We explored with dating, actually creating a dating app, which sounds very, very different from what we are doing now. But like eventually we iterated, we got rejections, we took a step back, we looked at problems to solve, and then eventually we were able to get to where we are now. It took us about maybe a year of iterating. It could be longer. We keep getting new ideas, but the bottom line is that it's a journey. It's not like an endpoint, in itself.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And sorry if I'm also chipping in with it. Also, some of the things that you can benefit from is also not necessarily being the first to market. everyone wants to be first to market. And often it's better to be second or third to market because the innovators, the first ones, have made the mistakes and have paved the way. So the idea about the artificial intelligence and sickle cell and imaging is fantastic. About 2 years ago, I learned about artificial intelligence and doing X-rays for lungs as a diagnostic for TB. So lots of X-rays overlaid with artificial intelligence and giving a diagnostic for an X-ray as well. So, and see how, so this becomes more mainstream as opposed to this crazy idea of people using computers to diagnose a disease when it's not actually necessarily the case. Is very, very helpful. Guy, oh, it was recording on YouTube. Okay, sorry, that was just an FYI. So we've only got about 10 or 15 minutes left. So let me go back to the questions I've written down in case I haven't missed anything. I don't have it there. So I mean, yeah, I mean, so what next? I mean, you guys are getting going. You're a couple of years away, but I'm assuming you're not working on one product for the future. Are you looking for series? You're still in kind of Series A funding stage. You're looking for Series B. Are you looking to be acquired? Are you looking to become a major player? What's your crystal ball tell you? What's your 5-year and 10-year holy grail scenario?
No, we're actually gonna do a seed round soon, and then in terms of like our 5-year goal, I guess we look at it more from like the impact point of view. We want to have a world where, you know, children don't have to die because there's lack of access to diagnostics, you know. And so we're hoping that in 5 years, our tool will be in every clinical facility and doctors can have their results as soon as they need it, you know. Yes, that's how we see it.
Fantastic. So any more questions on the floor, guys? We've got, you know, this is precious time that we have with Yaw that he's given up. No, we don't have. So Yaw, I mean, I just want to, you know, to summarize and say, is there anything, any last things that we have not mentioned that you think should have been mentioned, is the first question. And the second is, you know, maybe a final kind of nugget from your journey for people who are expecting to be successful at every first turn, you know, to close us off, to say, tell us a bit more about your journey and how do we keep going when you get knocked down? Because not everything is always successful.
Yeah, you just have to keep going. Yeah, you just have to keep going. I mean, it's not always like a smooth ride, but you know, as long as you keep working, you know, you'll be able to eventually, you may not end where you had originally intended, but you may end up in a better place, you know. And so I want to encourage like any young entrepreneur to, you know, keep going and keep pushing, you know, and you know, eventually you will find your path.
Thank you. And for the team, I'm just going to say like 30 seconds is, you know, just to reemphasize the message that it is a journey, guys. It's not a hit and miss thing. It's a journey. It's an evolution. Yaw gave you the experience of coming to UCT, going to Peter Ziller's group in cardiology, and then decided to move away from cardiology and use cardiology and blood being the disease, but using artificial intelligence. You wouldn't have scripted that 5 years ago, artificial intelligence and microscopes from somebody who was looking to do, you know, cardiothoracic surgery. So it's a journey, multiple funding sources, the role of intellectual property, the importance of partnerships, not trying to do everything yourself. Yaw, it's been a real privilege and a pleasure to have you join us today. And hopefully this is the start of a discussion and a dialogue with you. And I just want to say thank you very much for sharing your very early morning time with us, and very much appreciated.
Thank you too. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yaw. And of course, thank you to you as well, Richard. I'm sure everyone else learned as much as I did this afternoon. Thank you, everyone. you get 13 minutes of your life back, as they say.
Thanks, guys.